Hey guys, welcome to the Apartment Investing Journey. My name is David Robinson. I'm really excited about our guest today. He's got a great story with a ton of value to offer to you all. And so without further ado, Mr. Gino Barbaro, welcome to the show.
Dave, how you doing? You nailed my last name without any problems. That's great. That's a great way
Hey,
to start off.
and I'm from the West Coast. So, well, hey, a little bit about Gino. Gino is an investor, business owner, and entrepreneur. He's been investing in real estate for 15 years and has grown his multifamily portfolio to over 1,400 units in just 6 short years and accumulated over 90 million in assets. He's teamed up with his partner, Jake Stenziano, to create jakeandgino.com, a great resource. They provide real estate education, coaching, and training to real estate investors. He's also the best-selling author of Wheelbarrow Profits. Gino is a graduate of IPEC, which is the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, and is a certified professional coach. He's also the author of the best-selling cookbook, Family Food and the Friars. I got to check that one out. He currently resides in Florida with his beautiful wife, Julia, and their 6 children, Gabriella, Michael, Sophia, Veronica, Cecilia, and Laura. Man, you're a busy guy.
Dude, who is that guy you just introduced? That wasn't me 5 years ago. I mean, that's for sure. I've done a lot in 5 years. You know, the first 40 years or so, I was asleep at the wheel. I mean, you just end up waking up and going, hey, you know, it's time to live. It's not worth, we're not here on the planet to pay the bills. That's what it comes down to. You know what I mean? It takes the Great Recession. It takes a lot of stuff to kick yourself in the butt and say to yourself, I've got more talent than what I have. I don't have enough clarity. And you mentioned IPEC. IPEC is important for me. That was the life coaching component that really the personal development that everyone needs and everyone aspires to. Because if you're not responsible in life, if you don't take action, you don't commit and figure things out, and you don't have clarity on why you're doing something, I can tell you real estate is the best thing since sliced bread. And to me it is, and it has been. But if there's not a big enough why for you, why real estate, why multifamily specifically, it doesn't really matter. It's not going to resonate with you. For me, it did. I hated my job. I hated the restaurant. I hated being there 12 hours a day. I hated working on the weekends. I hated working on the holidays. I had to figure something else out, right? I was just uncomfortable enough for the first 30 something years of my life. I've been in business since I'm 24 years old. It was okay the first 10 or 15 years. Then something called the internet that Al Gore invented came out in the 90s, and everything shifted, complete shift. And it took about 10 years for that to happen. Back 05, 06, you start seeing funnels and landing pages, and everything starts taking over. Business starts changing. I have to start delivering food, and I have to start getting websites, and people want food quicker and the quality, they don't care it as much. '08 comes, everything shifts completely again. And that's when I said to myself, I can't sustain, I can't be a mom and pop like everybody else out there. What business can I find where I can actually scale, not become passive? Because nothing in life is passive. As Keith Cunningham said today in my podcast, there's nothing passive in life. There's something where you can scale a business and I can leverage others and I can do things that I love to do, like do 3 podcasts in a day, create content for my community, right? Those are things that I still want to do. I quote unquote retired in March of 2016 from the restaurant. I'm still working 50 plus hours a week, maybe more, but I'm doing stuff that I love to do. I'm going towards my sole purpose now. But to get back to the '08 story, I had to get a kick in the butt. And that's what happened to me. And that's why I just chose multifamily. And it just became clear to me, and the life coaching really, propelled me forward.
Well, man, you just threw out a lot right there, and let's unpack that a little bit. If you don't mind, let's back us up and walk us through your story, your journey into the multifamily apartment investing space. Talk to us about those years in the restaurant business and about that transition into real estate investing.
So I guess I'm a little different than the average person out there. I've got 6 kids. We homeschool our kids. I'm very family oriented, but when I'm at the restaurant, I'm splitting my time between my children and the house and, working and all. So for me, it was difficult. My values aligned with being a family person and being home for the holidays. And yet that business tended for me to work when everyone else was off. So that was a struggle for me. That was the number one. So align what your values and beliefs are, and then align your goals with that. That business did not allow me to do that. So for the last few years while I was in that business, it was challenging for me. It was tough. I liked it. I loved the clients. I loved the customers. I loved the camaraderie. I loved the food. I loved to cook, but I didn't like the business aspect. I didn't like when I had to work. So everyone out there, you need to work hard. If you think you're going to get into the business and you're going to do a 4-hour work week, maybe when you're 55 or 60 years old and you've got systems and you want to work 4 hours a week, that's different. But to get a business off the ground, to create systems to get to that point, you need to work hard. But you also need to work smart, right? So you need to work, in your business, not just in it, but you need to work on it, which is really important. And the third thing is you want to start working with passion. If you can do all three of those things, you're going to have a great life. Now, getting into the real estate, for me, it was very simple. I didn't want to fix and flip. I didn't want to have that carousel being transaction based. Everyone likes the transaction based dopamine hit. Okay, I made 30 grand here, 20 grand here. It's sexy. It's great. It does not create wealth. You pay a much higher tax bracket. At the end of the day, you need to continue doing it again. Right now, Jake and I, we bought our first 1,000 units. It was just me, myself, Jake, and another partner, 3 of us. So that portfolio is there. That's spitting off cash every single month. I don't have to transact anymore. I can continue to grow that. I don't need to do anything else. We got into syndication because that's another business. We call it multifaceted, where you have the property management company where Jake is running day to day. We have the Jake and Gino education company, which is another layer. We have the syndication company now, which we created to do syndications and to raise private money, raise money for our syndications. And now we're doing a capital company. We have a brokerage. So all these little layers are coming from one little multifamily property that we bought 6 years ago. It took us 18 months to get into it. But once you get into it and you figure out how to work it, you can get your second deal. You get that momentum going on. And that's what the cool thing about it was. We started out buying our own properties. You don't have to do that. You can start out by syndicating a deal, raising money for somebody else's deal possibly. A lot of our students do that. Or you can just syndicate and give money to somebody else and have them do the deal, and you put your own money as a limited partner to get some experience that way. Or you can go out, partner with somebody, take a deal down, or you can do what Jake and I did. We just partnered together and we started taking deals down ourselves. There's so many different ways to get into multifamily. It's exciting.
So the restaurant business didn't align with your values, being a family man and wanting to be able to spend the time that you needed to with your kids. And so you decided to pursue a different path. Why not go into something else? What was it about real estate that pulled you that direction?
Well, I mean, you want your lifestyle to work towards your business. You don't want your business to work towards your lifestyle. And real estate allowed me to do that. Hey, I was in Florida up until 2 years ago. I was in New York. I moved 2 years ago down to Florida because I could do that with real estate. I can go wherever I wanted to. Now, Jake is in Tennessee and he's living there because the portfolio is there. But if he wants to move eventually, he can hire third-party property management, pick up and leave and go wherever he wants to. Me with the Jake and Gino education, I can go wherever I want to. I need to do a lot of traveling now, but that's what real estate afforded me. The second thing was the ability to scale up, the ability to create that business, because you can create an amazing business when you're buying these multifamily properties, because you can raise money. You can hire employees, right? You can get a property manager. You can get a full-time maintenance guy. Try doing that with six family homes, single family homes. You can't do that. They're all different. They're all scattered. There's no way to create a system. Even if you buy a portfolio of 50 homes, those homes are all different. Where's the hot water heater? Where's the roof? How old are each one of those roofs? How big is the grass? It's hard to manage that with 1 or 2 employees. It's almost impossible. Multifamily allowed me to scale. And more importantly, Dave, when I was in the restaurant business, I didn't want another job. I didn't want to fix and flip. I already had the job. So for me, luckily, I said, multifamily looks pretty good. I can buy 25 units on a couple roofs, all in the same location, easier to manage. And it's a business. I can start scaling up. So that for me was the reason why. Then you can get into the tax implications with cost segregation, which wipes out tons of depreciation. You get big tax write-offs. You have the principal pay down where tenants are paying down your mortgage. You have that forced depreciation where your net operating income is going up. You're able to refinance these properties out, pull money out and put them into the next deal. That's how we did it. There's so many different reasons why multifamily, but those were the main ones for me.
So when you got started, you mentioned taking 18 months to take down your first deal. Can you talk to us about that time in your life and what that was like, those 18 months?
Yep. Our community director, Josh, says it beautifully. You can either pay to play or you can seek to serve. I paid to play. I went out and found a coach. I did 2 different coaching programs. I got my education. When I met Jake back in 2011, he was a drug rep. He was taking food out of my restaurant for doctor's offices. The Sunshine Act comes, thank God. And he decided, I can't do this drug rep thing anymore. He moves to Knoxville. He seek to serve. He said, Gino, I want to get the multifamily. I said, Jake, I do too. Let's start looking at deals in Knoxville. So it took us 18 months because he was a newbie, didn't know how to talk to brokers, young dude. Thought he was always right. You can't be abrasive with brokers. You have to learn how to build rapport. He's a sales guy. You need to sell yourself to the broker why you should be selecting and be buying that deal. the broker's not going to come to you, especially in this market. Back then, back in 13, 14, the market was a little bit different. But you really need to do, I paid to play. I went and I paid for my education. It was worth it every single bit. My learning curve increased dramatically because I had done real estate back in 03, 04, had bought wrong. You know, you're going to ask me about the biggest mistakes. I didn't focus on the right market. I didn't look at the right asset class. I didn't know how to invest in multifamily. I didn't know what a cap rate was. All these things I learned through my education, and it allowed me to actually attract somebody like Jake. We partnered up, and it took us still 18 months to find a deal, even with the capital, because we still were unsure of the market. Jake goes out and says, his wife says, we need to buy a house. That slows us down a little bit. Getting rejection. You know what? The job gets in the way. The kids get in the way. There's those excuses. But like I said, I had enough pain and enough motivation to continue to pursue it. And that's when we finally got our first deal after 18 months.
So, when you were looking for that deal, were you still working actively in the restaurant business as you were starting to get the real estate business off the ground?
Yes, I actually left the restaurant. We bought our first deal in February of 2013. I started weaning myself off the restaurant in October of 2015. We had just closed on a 281 unit portfolio. It was an $11 million deal, no money down. 80% bank financing, 20% owner financing. It was a freaking home run. I always tell the story. I'm in the shed at the restaurant, putting away containers and tins, doing $10 an hour work. And I'm sitting there negotiating an $11 million real estate deal. I'm saying to myself, there's something wrong here. I mean, I either have to crap or get off the pot. You know what I'm saying? So that was the aha moment for me. I just said, I have to take a leap of faith. I have to try it. So October of that year, I said, I'm going to start weeding myself. I'm going to work 5 days during a week with the restaurant, Saturday and Sunday with the real estate, Saturday and Sunday at the restaurant. So I took about 6 months of doing that. And then finally in March of 16, I said, you know what, to my brother, I'm out of here. You can, buy my shares, do whatever you need to do, but I need to do this full time and try to do it full time. And I did it for about a year and a half before I moved down to Florida. And I just said to myself, I need to focus on it. And once I got out of it, I was able to expand Jake and Gino. We had really expanded the portfolio and things started happening, because once you start focusing on something, it really grows. But the moral of that story is you don't have to give up all at once. You can lean into it. The 10% entrepreneur, start building that skill set. You need a couple of years of education, of, team building, of meeting people, of talking to brokers, of underwriting deals before you can just give up and say, hey, I'm done. So that's what I tell people. You don't have to give up all at once, but have a plan and have that exit strategy. When you're 80% of the way there to what you need that financial freedom number to be, that burn rate, time to cut the cord.
That's great. That's a great story. As far as you scaling the business up, how important was the business relationship between you and Jake? Do you feel like that propelled you forward? Do you feel like you would have reached the same level of success in the amount of time that you did if you didn't have that partnership? Maybe talk to us a little bit about partnerships and the importance.
Not even close. We need all to get together with mastermind groups. And if you don't have partnerships, you better get together with a mastermind group, because you need somebody pushing you there. And he'll probably say the same thing. Hey, listen, he's in Atlanta today talking to some Freddie Mac brokers about a deal we're doing. He couldn't do our podcast today at 12 o'clock. I did the podcast. But he's out in Atlanta. I had some other couple meetings with some other employees. I did them. Not a big deal. He's working his butt off. I'm working my butt off. He's feeding his family. I'm feeding my family. We're feeding each other's family. That's what a partnership is all about. And it's about pushing each other. We're writing our second book this year. I didn't want to write a book, but guess what? We're writing a book. You know what I mean? I didn't want to hire consultants. Guess what? We're hiring consultants. I'm sure he didn't want to do a lot of things that I'm pushing him to do. So that's what partnerships do. Just align yourselves with core values. I always look for, and I've made this mistake the last 6 months, with partners who are integrity, who have those core values, who are ethical, obviously honest, but they need to be hard workers. They don't need to be the kind of people that, it's the weekend, phone's off, not working. That's not the real estate business, because on the weekends is when you do your thinking, when you do your planning for the week. You have to plan your week out to be successful, because you have to know what you need to get done during the week to become successful. If you're starting out, you need to be underwriting 80 deals before you find one good one. How long is that going to take? Are you going to do 4 deals a week? That's going to take 20 weeks. That's going to take you 5 months. Fine. If you want to accelerate it, you need to do more. How are you doing that? How many brokers are you contacting? How many property tours are you doing? That has to all get worked out during the week. And you need to talk to your partner about what your goals are and what your plans for the week and for the months going on are.
I appreciate that. I want to talk a little bit about, you have a great coaching business that has a great following. And I listen to your podcast personally. My favorite episodes are the ones where you do the movers and shakers, talk about their early success or their first deals. Maybe if you're okay, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's do a dig on one of your early deals. And maybe let's talk about that first one if you're up for it.
Sure.
The one that took 18 months to find. If you can, just take us back and walk us through that. How did you find the deal? What were some of the specs around it? What was the business plan, and where's it at today?
So the first deal, I would have been following a gentleman named Jay Decima, Fixer Jay. If you guys want to go on the internet and watch him, he's was a guy out in Redding, California, who'd buy these dilapidated properties, would seller finance them, little cottages. They're grandfathered in. So this property we found was a 25-unit property. It had been on LoopNet for a couple of years. We found it in February of 13. It was listed for $750. We made an offer for $600,000, 24 units. At that price today, it's an amazing price. But back then, a couple of problems with the property. Number one, there were weekly renters, so income was really nice, but they're transient. It's transitional, right? The expenses were so much higher. They were paying $7,000 a year for cable. Their garbage bills like $7,000 a year. Their turn costs were a lot. They were paying utilities for the tenants. So there was a definite expense play there, definite management play there. The income, I don't know if we could have gotten it up that much more, and we really haven't gotten it that much more. But what we've done is we've cut expenses dramatically. So we've been able to actually, refi the property out. So when we took it over, first thing we did was started putting those systems in, started actually applications and started going to monthly renters. It took a little while to do that, but the tenant base got better. We stabilized the tenant base, and after 6 months, the mail lady liked to deliver the mail again. I mean, that's how much we did. There was pills going on, there's drugs going on the property. But that's what you do when you buy your first deal. You're looking for the biggest value add. So for us, the value add was the tenant repositioning, putting in those management systems, creating a website, having a system for applications, not just putting anybody in there with a heartbeat, but actually getting applications in and doing those criminal and credit background checks and going from weekly renters to yearly renters, which was a big, big thing for us. And like I said, we must have knocked out probably $35,000 in expenses a year over the last couple of years because they were paying for a lot of things that they shouldn't be paying for. But they thought, let me get people in weekly. I'm cash flowing like crazy. I'm going to have a lot of income. And if they leave, I'll just get the next person in. Not a viable business model long run. And what happens is you get burned out. The mom and pop gets burned out because there's no systems, there's no business model. So our business model is to take care of the deferred maintenance. They had 4 garages there. We cleaned all the stuff out. We rented out the garages. We took care of the landscaping. 18 months after we bought the property, we were able to refinance it. We had bought it for $600,000. We put a 10% seller financing note on it. So it was $60,000 down cash, $60,000 seller financing note. The closing costs and everything was $83,000 out of pocket. So me, Jake, and my brother Mike, my brother Mark, all 3 of us went on this deal. So about $25,000 each, a little bit more. It was an awesome deal. Cash flowed from day one. But you got problems. 6 months after we took over, the septic fields failed. There was $9,000. About 9 months after that, a tenant passed away in one of the units. Never happened to us. That's a learning experience. Had a couple terrible resident managers. But these are all things that as you have these problems, you learn, you commit, and then they don't become problems anymore. They're stuff that you deal with. So it's been great. We've been able to refinance $165,000 out of that deal. So we've almost doubled the amount of money we put in. And that's what the refi and roll goes. We had terrible terms when we bought it. So our terms on that deal was a 6% interest rate. We only had a 20-year amortization on it, and we had 5-year term on it. The reason why we got that was because the seller financing portion, the bank allowed us to seller finance it. So when we refinanced it with all that additional debt on it, it went to a 4.2 interest rate, 25-year AM, and we had a 7-year term on it. What happened to the payment? The payment basically stayed the same because the amortization went up to 25 years, and that rate dropped almost 2 points. So it was a boon to us. We're still cash flowing between $2,500 and $3,000 a month on that one little 25-unit property, and it just prints money for us. And it's part of our portfolio. We're able to incorporate it with another 180 units, so it's just easy to manage that property because we have a property manager on that property.
Can you speak to briefly how important getting that first deal under your belt was for you guys to actually break into the apartment investing business?
That is crucial. So I don't know if a lot of your listeners know the gentleman named Jay Scott. He's on Bigger Pockets. He's a huge, Bigger Pockets guy. He's a smart dude. Anybody should look him up. Very intelligent. He was on our podcast, and he basically said, you either have 0 deals or you have multiple deals. And a lot of newbies out there will have the analysis paralysis. They'll never do a deal. There's always an excuse. The market's too high. They don't have enough money. They're too young. They're too old. I don't like the market here. It's too expensive. Well, then you're going to stuck with zero. You don't find anybody with just one deal, because once you do that first deal, the momentum's there. All of a sudden you're a closer. We help you create a credibility book. You are taken seriously by the brokers, and all of a sudden you have more confidence. There's that level of optimal difficulty where once you've done a deal, it's basically rinse and repeat. The next deal has different parameters, but it's all the same thing. It's contract, underwriting, closing, and getting it going. So that first deal is really crucial. And I always tell my students, think big, but start small. That's what T. Harv Eker, preaches. If you're looking to buy 100 units in your first deal and you've never done real estate, you have no business background, and you don't have any capital, guess what? Probably not going to happen, because it's a hard thing to do. But if you're starting out with a fourplex or sixplex, there's more chances of you doing that. Proof of concept. That's another way to become more confident and more competent in something. Start with something a little bit smaller, a little bit more manageable. For us, the 25 units, I break it down to, it's basically about 8 units for Jake, myself, and my brother, if you want to think of it that way. When those septic systems failed, $9,000, we could take it from the cash flow. It wasn't a 150 unit property where the septic fields were $42,000 and then I'm screwed. So if that had happened on my second or third deal, we can manage, we can scramble around. But on your first deal, it'll sink you. So don't let your ego overtake you and say, I only want to get into really big properties. Right now in this market cycle, you get into really good deals. Whatever the good deal is, get into the deal. And our 3-step propriety framework is buy right, manage right, and finance right. Do not go against the buy right, because I'd rather have no deals than a bad deal. I've learned that throughout my career. I've had a couple really bad deals. Great learning lessons, but stay away from the bad deals because they can sink you.
I appreciate that. Now, you coach a lot of up-and-coming investors. Mm-hmm. And maybe you already spoke to this a little bit, but what are the things that you've noticed in your experience of coaching that sets the students apart or the investors apart that actually succeed, and the ones that either fail or just never get started? And I know that you've already emphasized the importance of getting your first deal under your belt, but what is it that sets the guys apart that make it in the business versus the ones that flounder?
I'm the perfect example. I mean, take a look at me. I am not a rocket scientist. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but you need to work hard and you need to learn certain principles about multifamily real estate. I think you need to hold yourself accountable. I think you need to learn how to certain business sets. You need certain business skills that you sort of need, but it's really implementing a framework and surrounding yourself with an environment and with a mastermind group of people who will push you to get forward. A lot of our students in our community are partnering up. They're getting together. We do a lot of events. So we see a lot of the students. We're having a boot camp this weekend for about 50 students in Atlanta. They get together. It's not just the education. It's the camaraderie. It's the networking. Multifamily real estate and real estate in general is all about your network, who you know, who you can leverage, who you can ask questions, and that's who succeeds. You don't have to be this big extrovert. I heard the term ambivert. You can be an ambivert, which is in between an introvert and an extrovert, and just get out there and just get out there when you have to. Get in a podcast, push yourself out of your comfort zone, start doing different things, start networking. And I think the other students, like I had mentioned to you, really have clarity and they have a little bit of pain going on in their life. Because if you're, basically uncomfortable, but you're okay with your job and you're okay with the family, nothing's going to change. Once you hit that point where, man, my life sucks, or I've got something else to do, to me, that's probably a very important thing for me. And I think the coaching aspect of it is really important also, because a coach can teach you, but he holds you accountable. Because if you're on a call every 2 weeks and you didn't do your work, you're not going to get on that call. But I know students will do the homework the night before. They get on the call with the coach just to get it done. Holding them accountable. We have weekly lessons every Monday where we get on a weekly lesson with our students. We're teaching them something different. They're getting on every week. We have a private Facebook group where they're in the community and they're networking with other students. They need to raise money or ask questions. It's there. That accountability piece is one of the most important things, I think, in life and in business in general. If you can hold yourself accountable to your goals and to what you said you're going to do, you're more likely to get them done.
Well, I know you've had a busy day already, and you've been gracious with your time thus far. I want to be respectful of that, and so I want to start winding down here a little bit, but I've got 3 rapid-fire questions. I just want to get your gut knee-jerk reaction to. You ready?
Sure.
Okay. What's the biggest mistake that you've made on your apartment investing journey so far?
This is before I started with Jake, and that was not knowing my market and not knowing how to underwrite a deal properly. And, not knowing the market cycle. I think those 3 are really important. I bought at the wrong time of the cycle, but if I'd bought right and I'd bought in a good market, I could have sustained it or at least after 5 or 6 years, would have gone back to even, but I bought in a bad market. I bought an asset that I didn't understand, and I didn't have enough team members. Those three are the biggest mistakes that I made.
I've got to ask a follow-up question on that one, though.
Sure.
So if you bought in a bad market, there's a lot of discussion about us being at the top of, depending upon, what area of the country you're in, but generally speaking, a lot of discussion about being the top of a cycle. How do you respond to people that say, hey, I'm going to, wait it out. I'm going to wait until the market turns and take advantage of the market when it turns? What's your thoughts?
Give me a couple minutes on this, because this is truly important, because this touches a nerve with me, because I have a lot of students who say, I'm not going to get into education or anything until the market turns. Well, first of all, they're not going to know when the market turns, because they're not going to be educated. Second of all, they need to have relationships in the market. So when the market turns, they can call Jennifer, the broker, and say, Jennifer, do you have any deals for me? If they're not started, and third thing is they say, well, I don't need money. Well, that's okay, because you can create relationships and start raising capital and start creating an investor base before the market turns. So there's never a good or bad time to buy. Now, at this point in the market, maybe your strategy might be a little bit different, where you're buying deals and you're fixing and flipping apartment complexes with syndication. So the strategy might not be long-term holds, but at this point, if you can buy a good deal that's cash flowing in a pretty stable market, I think with the 10-year debt on it, I think it's a buy and hold if you're buying at a decent cap rate. So every deal is different, every exit strategy is different, but don't wait, because you keep waiting, and once that economy crashes, what's going to happen? You won't be able to get financing. Your investors are going to run away because they've never done a deal with you. So why would they do a deal with you if you're in a recession or a depression? When you have that capital available with you, and the economy collapses, if you think that's what's going to happen, and prices are going to come down, you can take it, because you've got the team built and you've got investors behind your back.
Well, and I think that goes back to what you preach with the buy right, manage right, finance right principles in any market. If you follow those principles, you're gonna have a pretty good chance of succeeding. All right, moving on to the next question. What is the biggest win you've had on your apartment investing journey so far?
I've had a lot of wins. We've been able to refinance over $9 million from our portfolio. So to me, individual ones, one of the deals we refinanced over $4 million from it, because we just bought it right. We bought it at the right time in the market. We were able to add a ton of value. We were able to increase revenue from $53,000 a month to over $120,000 a month in about 4.5 years. So, there's a lot of wins. I think just buying right has been my caveat, because I've passed on a lot of deals in the last couple of years. I'm not a syndicator who wants to have acquisition fees. I'm not into the fee thing. I could have bought a lot more deals. We could have bought marginal, skinny deals. I don't want to do that. So I think one of my biggest wins is to buy right. If you can't take that away. Once you buy the asset, there's nothing else you can do. So just focus on buying right with that asset.
And then the last question I have for you is, what's your best advice for someone who's just starting their apartment investing journey?
I would tell them, go on sites like Bigger Pockets, go on sites like jakeandgino.com, listen to podcasts. But that's just the beginning, because podcasts are great. They're motivational, but they don't take a deep dive like these communities do, like our private Facebook group does and our coaches do. So get educated. And when you're ready to take it to the next level, and you're ready to really cut your learning curve, go out there and vet all the gurus out there and see who works for you, because they've all doing it. As long as they're doing it, that's what I think sets us apart from a lot of these. I don't want to use the word guru, because it's such a negative connotation, but we're a vertically integrated company. We buy right. We manage the properties ourselves. We have a mortgage company now. So now we're actually getting mortgages for our students. So we're doing the entire business. So the important thing about that is you're actually in the market, and the market's constantly changing. We're constantly seeing rates change. We're constantly seeing management principles changing. Now artificial intelligence is coming out through our property management software AppFolio that we use. We know that because we're using it. So go out and find somebody who's actually doing what you want to do, and who's invested and who's involved in the business that you want to pursue.
Well, Gino, thank you very much for your time. How can our listeners connect with you?
Email is gino@jakeandgino.com. Just go on jakeandgino.com. You'll see that we actually have 4 shows on the Jake and Gino channel. Just launched Multifamily podcast, Multifamily Zone with my wife. Don't even know the name. We just, it's a podcast that we did because we have a big family community out there. So it's with my wife, my spouse, and we talk about the journey, an entrepreneurial journey with the family, and how to work with your spouse about that. We have our Rand Capital podcast that comes on Tuesdays. We have the Jake and Gino show on Thursdays, and we have Movers and Shakers, which you were talking about, where we highlight student success stories. So we're just, just go on there, subscribe to our podcast. You're going to get a lot of value from that. And just hit me up, Gino, jakeandgino.com.
Well, Gino, I appreciate your time taking out of your busy day. Thank you for all you're doing in the industry to educate others and telling your story, how you got into the business and accomplished some really cool things over the last 5-6 years. And so I appreciate your time and hope to connect with you again soon.
Dave, anytime. Thank you for having me on, and I love sharing the story. Take care.